Hello, everybody. Hello, Bettina. How you doing?
Oh, hi, Eric. Hi, everyone. I'm having a hot flash right now. Right, bad timing, but yes, that's it. I'm having a hot flash. Sorry, people.
Yeah, and I'm sure the hot tea you just made for yourself isn't helping.
No, probably not. Anyway, I'm good though.
Uh, I'm so grateful.
That's
I
so
don't
hilarious.
I don't know what that feels like.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's not fun. Although, you know, I'm not sure it's the hot flashes in the and we talked about this the other night, that it's not, I'm not sure it's hot flashes in the traditional menopausal sense of the word. I think it's anxiety induced, actually. So there you go, from muscle memory, from
Mm,
old stuff.
yeah, it is amazing. Yeah, how physically manifested some of those heavy emotions can be.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
um, it's kind of in my body, I guess, and it's hard to shake those muscle memory things. Um, but anyway, there I am.
Yeah.
Having a hot flash.
It is amazing the habits that we form unconsciously, and then how they stay with us, and they are hard to shake, and we can like set ourselves up to feel that for years after what it was originally designed to prepare you for no longer being the case.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because I'm going through yet another stage of the letting go of my business, and what that means to me. And the other day, as if for the first time, and maybe not, but it felt like the first time, I could see how there's this thing in my head all the time that says, you must make money to be of value. You must make money to be of value. And I think that's a huge source of stress that I've been living with um, for the better part of the time that Peter and I have been together, because in my previous marriage, that was in fact the belief that my husband had. And so I was constantly feeling inadequate because of this belief that said, you must earn money and you must earn a certain amount to be of value to the relationship. And Peter is like so far not even close to that. And he sees my value as the things I do contribute to the household, um, which, as you know, is very traditional. My contributions, but but that belief is still rattling around in my head. You're not of value unless you are making money, and you're not making money. So what are you going to do about it? And so this constant state of guilt and anxiety um, and fear about, you know, how I'm seen by other people because of this belief that's in my head.
Yeah.
So so that's kind of, you know, the last couple of days just dealing with not so much the business, but what that business meant in terms of that belief and how it was feeding that belief, um, to a certain extent, and sort of really looking at um, that belief and recognizing how much an illusion it is. So yeah,
Yeah.
it is interesting.
It's really hard for us, because of the way that we learn through taking in our experiences of life and then internalizing them and creating a set of values or standards or beliefs that we have about life. Um, it's so difficult to wipe the slate clean. And when things no longer apply, to let go of all those like deep, like almost feel like as deep as it can be in your heart, in your spine, wherever it is, deep in your brain, of those triggers that get activated when the threat is no longer there. Um, and how many beliefs, and I this is something I still work on a lot, um, because you take beliefs from old relationships, whether they be from parents, whether they be from old lovers, and old setups. And what was you get so ready, like looking for the danger spots, that when you see them, even though you could be miles away from that situation now, years away from that situation, it still gets that ball in your chest. It still makes you tighten up. It still has a very physical response in you. And then you get worried, and then you start looking, and it's like you can't see the danger, but then you start imagining it, and you start spinning in your head. And you're like, oh, I need to feel this anxiety. I need to do more, even then what all the other parameters have changed. And I really like your example when you talk about the ways that you contribute, because having, just been at your house on Saturday night last weekend for a lovely time. I mean, I find it amazing what you do, all the stuff that you do from scratch, and I mean the amazing homemade ice cream you made, and the angel cake, and the dinner, and the garden you tend, and all the things that, whenever I come to your house, I'm always asking for you to show me things like your cold cellar for all your preserves and all the things that you make. I find it incredible, because it was nothing that I was never exposed to as a kid. And I find it amazing. And even though the parameters have changed where you contribute in such a different way, but because of what you carry with you and the things that I carry with me from my childhood, from old relationships, how they can still affect us, and they can literally eat us up for days, for weeks, for months, until we sit with them and look at them and convince ourselves, remind ourselves that it no longer needs apply. And that is a situation where we have to continually do that to ourselves, so that we can be free of a situation that we've left behind.
Yeah, and I think, when I look at it, I think all this stuff I do, taking care of the house and helping Peter take care of his business, and I'm not going to list it all, but like all the things that I do, I'm devaluing because I feel my value lies in, a paycheck or a dollar sign. And because of that, and because my focus is on that, I totally devalue everything else that I do.
Yeah.
And I'm not being fair to myself, and I'm not being
Mhm.
fair to Peter, who so appreciates everything I do. Um, I'm
Yeah.
kind of devaluing him as well.
That's
Um,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
and you said something else. Oh, when you were talking about, the way you see the world and how you're always looking for trouble, um, sort of what you said, looking for trouble, and because of what you believe, and it's like that. I call it the waiting for the other shoe to drop syndrome.
Yeah.
Is that you're always on guard. You're always waiting for that thing to happen that's going to cause you distress. But what you're doing is causing yourself distress just in the waiting for the other shoe to drop. And when we do that, we're not living present in the world. We're not experiencing life. We're experiencing the waiting for something bad to happen. And
Yeah.
it's hard to shake that, but life would be so much better if we could.
Yeah. It's cruel that wait, like, waiting for the shoe to drop. And when you first said it, I've heard that many times. It's I don't know if you want to call it a cliche. Um, and but then as you explained it, what really hit me was the waiting part, and how the waiting part is so cruel to ourselves, because we imagine scenarios, we imagine ourselves as being less than, when it's not even necessarily true. um, and it's like waiting, it's not even the other shoe dropping, it's not even our new partner or our new situation coming back and lambasting us for failing to live up, because that's not going to happen. But it's that waiting for it, like we experience it over and over, like we literally experience it dozens and dozens of times without it actually ever occurring in real life. um, this happens all the time with insecurities in relationship, and we imagine the worst, and we punish ourselves. We put ourselves in the shoes of the other person and punish ourselves as them, and we do it over and over again, waiting for them to do it to us.
Yeah.
It's not nice. It's not a nice thing to do to your best friend, the best friend that lives inside you.
Yeah.
It's really mean. Don't do that to your best friend.
Yeah, exactly. And, I read somewhere that, um, and there's no difference between experiencing something and
Yeah.
thinking about experiencing it. Peter told me a story once about Adyashanti, which is a teacher that he followed for quite some time, doing a talk. And this girl was really distressed. She had been raped and like 10 years before, and she just couldn't bring herself to heal from it. And he said to her, "How many times were you raped?" And she said, "Once." And he said, "And how many times have you relived it in your mind?"
Yeah.
And it was over and over and over, thousands of times, over and over and over again.
Yeah.
It's your mind that's causing you suffering, not the fact that you were raped once 10 years ago. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, you know, rape is something that should be dismissed. But what I'm saying is we do cause our own suffering by holding on to it and being a victim of it years after the fact. You know, we are giving up our life because some asshole
Yeah.
invaded our personal space and our privacy and abused us that way. He's long gone, but we're still doing it to ourselves. And I think that was a really valid point. And I think it speaks to, you know, you saying, be kind to your best friend. Don't be cruel, because I don't think we realize half the time that it's us that are being cruel to ourselves, not what's happened, but our prolonging of what's happened in our mind that causes us all that distress.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. And when I first read it, I couldn't believe it, but I know it to be absolutely true since then. And that is what you said there. I read that a long time ago, that our brains cannot tell the difference between something that's actually lived and something that's imagined. It's like, come on, that's ridiculous. When I first read it, it's like, of course, real is real and imagined is imagined. But the more that I examined it and the more that I challenged myself to think about it, it's really true. And you can find so many examples of the anxiety we feel in relationships, when we're worried about something. Like the thing hasn't even happened. It works in positive ways when it comes to like fantasy and sexual fantasy. But most of the time we're just being cruel to ourselves and we're using it in a way that hurts us. And the thing is too is that it's such a polarizing thing, in that it's always your worst insecurities that you play out over and over and over again. It's not, on a scale of +10 to -10, it's not the -2s, the -3s. It's always the -8s and the -9s, the thing that you are most afraid of. The thing that you may have been mistreated when you were younger, or you may have developed a set of beliefs because of a bad situation, and it's those things that we don't stop. Like it takes a lot of work to get over those things, and until we do, it is our worst fears that play out in our minds over and over and over again. So it's not even like a low level pain. It's always like the worst thing that we can think about happening to us, whatever that is for everybody. And everybody has one or two or three of those things. And it's always those things that we're reliving. And it just highlights how mean it is that we live our worst fears over and over and over again.
Yeah, the good old WCS. And how many times do we relive all the good things?
Yeah,
I think we don't, as much as
not
maybe
as much for
we
sure.
should.
Yeah,
Um, or just living in the present and
yeah,
being fully present with what's happening right now, not what we think might happen, or what happened last time we were in this situation, or you know any number of imaginings that we could possibly have, which are all illusion and all brought on by the ego, and all involve conflict and suffering and confusion and pain. And yet we go back for more every single time, every single
yeah,
time. And it's
yeah,
almost like, well, if you put it that way, it sounds pretty stupid, but we still do it, right? Because there's a promise of,
yeah,
um, shoot, a promise of, and then I just in uh, today's text, here it is. In today's text of A Course in Miracles, what I read today for my thing was, um, I have said that the ego's rule is seek and do not find. That's the ego's rule.
Oh
And yet,
God, so
now
true.
if we knew that in the forefront of our mind, okay, so the ego's telling you to go and do this because this will bring you happiness. But the ego's rule is seek and do not find. So you're not going to find happiness there. You're only going to look for it, and you'll be perpetually in this state of looking. You know, you go, wow, that's really dumb. But we do it every day. We do it every day because that's our default, and that's, you know, what how we've been conditioned. And it's really all about reconditioning ourselves and bringing ourselves, undoing everything that we've learned, which the Course calls the atonement, and coming back to who we really are and who we were the moment we took our first breath. You know, that's who we truly are, and it's about bringing ourselves back to that space. And it's like it's like paper training a puppy. You know, the puppy starts to go off the paper, back on the paper. The puppy goes off the paper, back on the paper.
Yeah,
You know, straying back on the paper. And that's what we have to do with our mind, is we have to train our mind to go back onto the paper, back to loving presence, back to loving presence, back to loving presence. And to be okay with ourselves and to forgive ourselves and to be compassionate and gentle and loving ourselves at the times that we don't, and say, ah, yes, but I've learned I can go back to loving presence anytime.
yeah,
Even if I did, you know, even if I just yelled at somebody and I feel like crap, I can go back to loving presence and forgive myself, and I can then start from that space again. So we can always start from ground zero any given moment, but we really have to train ourselves to be aware and to do that, to come back home,
yeah.
basically.
Yeah, and if you want to like really alleviate your suffering, and it'll never be over because we have this ego, and the moment we let our guard down, it's going to come back. But if you really want to alleviate the suffering that we feel in this life, I mean that is really the key. We have to keep bringing ourselves back to loving presence. We keep having to bring us back to the knowing that it's an illusion, that we're making it up. You know, I say on this show all the time that we are gods. You know, that's a spirituality that works for me. You know, rather than just putting God out there, I am God because I create my own experience. And when I do this to myself, and I'm still guilty of it all the time, but when I do it to myself, you know, I am creating my experience of misery and suffering. And I do know the tools, and I've read, and you know, it is important to educate yourself and watch shows like this. And you know, previous to us putting on this show, we watched thousands of shows before this, and watched thousands, and listened to audio CDs and everything. You know, to get your place to where you have enough tools that you can consistently and reliably bring yourself back to loving presence, and you can do the things you can. You know, for what works for me, I love going on walks. That really helps me organize my feelings. You know, putting my hand on my chest like this, you might even see me doing the show all the time if my camera's low enough. This always makes me feel better, and so do it. You know, that brings me back to living present, bring me back to my heart space. You know, and that in an instant I can stop the cycle of anxiety. I can stop the cycle of replaying my worst fears, playing out in the future, that haven't even happened. And I love, you know, what you say, that we just keep going back for more because we're under this false belief that if we process it enough in this way, if we spin enough in our heads, we'll somehow fix it. We'll somehow get to some conclusion. But we have to understand, like you said, the beautiful having the Course in Miracles right there beside you, is the ego, you know, is seek and do not find. When we want to play it in our heads, we want to relive it, and we want to feel that anxieties because we feel like it'll get us somewhere closer to feeling better. Realize that we're using the tool of the ego to get there. That the ego is making us spin, and so long as we follow the ego is not our friend in that situation. You know, its point is to not find it. Okay? The point is just to relive it so that it strengthens itself, so that we feel that we put more trust in their ego. Okay, well, if I just keep thinking about it, if I keep thinking about it, if I keep thinking about it, it'll you know, make itself better, and it won't. It's a lie. It's a lie, and you have to be able to cast it off and say, this is not. It has never been the path to feeling better. It has never been the path to feeling better, and I can find new ways. And once we stop giving our power to the ego in that way, we have a chance. We have a chance to get past these things that keep us constricted, that keep us small, that keep us from love. And something you said earlier about, not being fair to yourself, like when you have this idea about a paycheck, if that's one of yours, it's not being fair to yourself because you do have so much value. And an add-on point to that I think we can all acknowledge, but something we don't always think about is that how that's unfair to our partner, because your partner doesn't think that, and we stop them from loving us before they even had a chance, because we're like, nope, 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 no, no, you do believe that at some level. I don't believe you. And of course, in our great moments, we can, but in the moments where we're captivated by this, we're like, no, no, you can't love me because I'm not ready to be loved because I'm not worthy. And and that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, that's exactly it, though. Um, it's dead on, and it's sad, really, because um, you know, when I think about how many years I've been doing it, and the benefit of people who are like you, who are much younger than me, who have, you know, uh, discovered this path so much younger, and I think, lucky you, because you've got this whole life ahead of you that is full of um, such amazing things. Not that I don't still have time ahead of me that's full of amazing things, but I do sometimes wish that I had known what I know now. That sounds like a very cliche thing to say, but I wish I had known back then what I know now, because I think a lot of things would have been different for my first marriage and my kids, and for me. I was going to say something else about that, but I forgot now. No big deal.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's the ego. We know. I know what I was going to say. It's a really tricky path. This spirituality thing, and I always hesitate to call it spirituality because there's many different definitions of the word, and it could be taken as a religious thing, as well as um, different branches of spirituality, and how much it has sort of split apart lately. And I know I've talked about this before, but it's very easy to get caught up in that idea that I need to be fixed, and that my spiritual journey is about fixing myself and getting rid of my ego. One, you'll never get rid of the ego because it's part of your humanity. Um, the the idea is to just choose what mind you're listening to, the ego mind, or the mind of God. And two, the ego can very easily disguise itself um, as the observer, and can pretend that you've got it all going on, and that how to do this spirituality thing, and everything's cool, um, all the while keeping you in the distraction of, I need to fix myself, or if I do this, then I'll be happy. It's not about, if I do this, if I fix this, then I'll be happy. It's about, can I be happy no matter what is happening? Even if I'm feeling angry, can I still feel the contentment and the love that is that inherent part of me, that is the foundation of who I am? That's really the whole idea of spirituality. Can I allow the emotions to enter in and feel them and experience them, and do it from that place of impartiality instead of that resistance, but with acceptance and flow and love? That's spirituality. Um, how you get there, I guess there's many different paths to get there, but when you get there, it's a non-point, it's a non-event. Um, because when you get there, none of it matters anymore, and you are in that space and everything is okay and everything's good, and you are in the point of being with whatever it is that's happening in this moment. And you don't need to talk about how spiritual you are anymore, because that doesn't matter, because the mind of God doesn't know anything but I am. And when you're no longer, you can watch the ego and you can be totally okay with it, because you know that you don't need to listen to it anymore, and you don't have to follow the rules of the ego of search and do not find.
Yeah. Yeah. When you can be that peace and you can be that love when there's a storm around you, when you can feel okay, um, even if the situation's currently in your life, where before it would trigger you 5 ways to Sunday. Is it 5 days of Sunday or 6 days of Sunday? That's an old reference.
I don't even know.
um, when you can get back to that loving presence, however it works. See, here we go again. I just put my I just put my hand on my chest, because that's how I do it. That's how I do it when I don't have time for a walk or when I don't have time for a full meditation. I just do this. And I breathe into the palm of my hand. And for me, it's, for different people, there's like things about tapping and whatever, like whatever works for you, and that just helps me. That's like my first, if I have a second, that's what brings me back to it. If I can get there. Now, I think I forgot the point at the end of it all. Distracted twice. I'll move on, because it does connect. And it's funny that we talked about this on the show today, because, before the show, we thought about ideas for the show, and I had a whole bunch, and this wasn't one of them. But I'm really, because, basically how it went was like, Bettina, do you have a show idea today for today? She goes, I think I'm out for today. I was like, okay, great. I have a whole bunch. And then we got into this show, and immediately this topic just takes form, and it's so perfect. And I feel so impassionate about it, because I've had like this week has been really something I haven't shared yet. And I wasn't going to, but I think it applies a lot. And it's that, we were at your house on Saturday night, and sadly on Saturday night, my cousin hung himself and committed suicide. Yeah.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
thank you. Yeah. And so it's been this week, and going through, the visitation and thinking about it. And like, it's been a heavy week for me. And he struggled with mental health issues. Growing up, things seemed well, and in and out of hospital. And without going into too much details, like just to be respectful, but it was on this collection of pills and trying to find the right kind. And he was really struggling, especially for his last like 5 months. And it's, this anxiety is swallowing our society up. This anxiety, this depression, this sense of powerlessness. That's what it was. That's what it was. When I can get here, when all the things around me are going poorly, when I'm trapped in my spiraling thoughts, when I can get here again, I can realize that I'm God, because I'm ever powerful and ever I'm a creative force. I can create my state. I can create my experience, and through that, eventually, I will change my environment. But I can always change, once I learn the tools, once I trust myself, once I trust the education, once I find this, to help find the strength to stay away from pills and drugs. Because I know, I mean, even this week, I mean, I felt moments of terrible, like, sadness and pain and frustration and anger. And it would be nice to reach for something to make it go away. But you have to do the work, because it's just going to cover it up. It is never going to solve it. And if you do the work, at least, you can get good enough where you can just do this. You can just meditate. You can just go for a walk, and you can heal yourself like a pill will. But then you fix it. You actually fix it. You actually move beyond it. You actually process it. And I'm not making a reference like this could have saved him or anybody who has gone down this road, or anybody who's considering it. It's more complicated and it's deeper than that. But it's a start, and it is the only way out. It's the only way out. Books, and processing and spending that time on your own, it's the only way out. And yeah, we can create. We can really do it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, um, in a lot of ways, we're going backwards in terms of trying to protect people from feeling. Like I watch it happening in this house. I watch it happening, just in our family dynamic. It's like someone comes in and they're mad, and you're trying to, run around trying to fix it. Because that's what you've always done, is because you're uncomfortable with someone else's anger and you try to fix it and make it so that they're not angry. What can I do? How can I make it better? You can't make it better for anybody. You can't. They have to go through, they need the space to feel whatever they need to feel. And sometimes, they can't deal with that. And sometimes, it goes to the tragedies of people who are, taking their lives because they don't see any other way out of their pain. And all we can do, we can't, like you said, we can't stop it from happening. We can't stop people from traveling their own path, but we can create a safe space for ourselves to feel what we have to feel, to process what we have to process, to heal what we have to heal, and to allow other people to do it in their own way as well. It's so important, so important, um, to give people that space to feel and to find their own way, whatever that way is. Unfortunately, it's not always a way that we feel is, the best. And it's sad when people can't, um, find their way in life through their pain. But it's also, again, that's the path that they've chosen. And it's those that are left behind um, that are feeling that pain and suffering from the loss of someone who, you know, has been an important part of their lives. So I'm sorry for your loss. I really, you know, I know that's a really tough thing to have to go through. And like you said, though, you got to do your own grieving. You got to do your own processing, and that's really all you can do. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
my
it's
heart goes out to his family.
yeah, it's important, to respectfully benefit from the example of others, and to acknowledge other people's pain. Um, we talked last week on the show about keeping that, creating a safe space for somebody else's struggles, and to really be a witness to other people when their lives are a daily nightmare. When living each day it is like living in hell for them. And uh, and I always find that, to acknowledge that, you know you you are selfless in giving them that space, but as an offshoot of that, over the long term for yourself, it can help you find gratitude in your own life. And when you have, one of the greatest things in my life is my sense of gratitude, and it's something that I cultivated because I was a victim as a teenager. In my head, I was, the world is shit, and people are crazy, and they're stupid, and they're dumb, and they deserve bad things, to the point where you create enough pillars of gratitude in your life, and it's like sunshine. I for somebody who's struggling, I know it sounds a long way removed, but when you have all these pillars and you can go to them quickly, just like you can go to the loving space, when you can get to gratitude in an instant, um, it just illuminates, like it brings light to all the darkness. And sometimes other people's tragedies can be a source of knowing, of not losing perspective on what a gift life is.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's very well put.
Um, well, we're past our half hour. It's been a intense
Yeah.
show, and one that's really brought up a lot of passion in me, and I'm grateful. I'm great. Here it is. I'm grateful for the show because I'm grateful. I'm grateful for my passion, and that, just even that, just being grateful for my passion or for whatever it is inside of you. Everybody has passion, but maybe you can't,
Yeah.
maybe you can't feel it right now. But something, something about yourself, be grateful for, and it brings back your own power, your sense of power. Because I know I'm good at that, and I know I got that going for me, and that can serve as a lot of fuel, for moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So how would you feel about finishing this off with a meditation?
I'm grateful to be able to meditate.
That's right. It's going to, yeah, say it a million times.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love doing this show. I'm very passionate about my, you know, the path I'm on, and the whole idea of helping other people. And I've really sort of learned that helping people doesn't necessarily mean sitting down with people and teaching them per se, but just showing up in the world from that place of loving presence. Um, so I am, I do love sitting down with you every week and having these conversations, because I think they're so valuable to me. Um, and if they're valuable to other people, that's a bonus. And, I'm so glad. But I know how valuable they are to me, and how much I've learned from the conversations, and, how I sometimes do all my work on the show. But, that's what it's about. Everything in life is showing us the way. And we just have to be open to hearing and seeing and knowing, what that path is for ourselves. So, okay, so now I'll meditate. So let's close our eyes and take a deep breath and breathe deeply into our pure essence, that living, vibrant, loving presence that is the source of all that we are, that speaks to us in a loving, compassionate way, with kindness, that sees beauty and gratitude, that is wise beyond all things earthly, that shows us when we are willing to sit in the stillness. It will show us the way. It will show us what needs to be done or what needs not be done. It guides us in our being and takes us to the place that we call home, the place where love is living. No matter what is happening in our outside world, that love is always present. That source of all that is always deep within us. And we can live in this world, present in each moment, and still be connected. We can feel anger, we can feel fear, we can feel guilt and shame, we can feel love and joy and peace, all the while on the steady bedrock of the loving presence that lives within us. And so let yourself be in that space. Allow yourself the luxury of feeling what is truly, truly the emotions that are rising in you in any given moment. And know that it is all part of your loving presence being manifest in this world. And when you're ready, wiggle your fingers and your toes and bring yourself back to the world.
Thank you, Bettina.
You're welcome.
Thank you for doing this show with me. I so love it.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
Hmm. Hmm. All right, everybody. Thank you so much
It's one
for.
of the highlights of my week.
Yeah, it really is for me too. It's a beautiful anchor. It serves me greatly, and if it serves anybody else,
Me too.
that's a bonus.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye for now.